Welcome to Aquasplainer. In today's video, we're going to put together an aquascape in a glass bowl. Not just any aquascape. This is going to be a Dutch aquascape. Now, strictly speaking, a Dutch aquascape has to be in a rectangular format. So we're going to call this a Dutch-inspired aquascape instead. However, in keeping with the Dutch tradition, the plants are going to be organized in rows. This will make for an interesting effect when they're all growing in and you rotate the bowl. Before we get started, let's look at the materials we're going to use for this project. We've got a 30 centimeter glass bowl which holds about 13 liters of water. There's a 15 watt 80 LED USB grow light which is going to be perfect for our plants. We're going to use a dirted tank method. So at the bottom of the bowl, I'm going to use some wild mud that I gathered from a local pond. I'm going to cap that with play sand, which is non-toxic, easy to find, and inexpensive. Plus I've got some grainier decorative sand that I'm going to use around the edges. All the plants have leaves of different shades and shapes in keeping with the Dutch tradition. We'll take a look at each plant species when we get to planting them. Here's the dirt on the dirt. I gathered this mud from the edge of a pond that was drying up in the summer heat. It comes from an ecosystem that supports fish, amphibians, birds, tons of insects, as well as algae, various aquatic plants, grasses, and reeds. It smells pretty organic. However, within the mud will be all kinds of organic nutrients, biofilm, microorganisms, and the kind of bacteria we need to break down organic waste in the water, turning ammonia into nitrites and nitrites into nitrates that our plants can absorb. That way we can start to build an ecosystem in the bowl. I scooped it over, chopped it around to make sure there aren't any stones or larger pieces of wood in it, and I've wet it and made it into a bowl. It's messy, but this is a manageable way of getting rid of any bubbles and placing it in the bowl. Formed into a semi-wet bowl, the mud is easy to manage in the bowl without spreading it everywhere. I compact it down, squeezing it tight to the glass to get rid of bubbles, then form it into a cohesive round shape. With my fingertips, I'm pushing in the edges so it won't mix with the sand very much at all. Hopefully it will be even across the top. I'm putting a match in the middle, which is just over 2 inches long. This will serve as a guide. I can see there's just under an inch of mud in the bowl, and we'll cap that with another inch of sand, give or take. A little bit of mud has spread to the sides of the bowl. To prevent that mixing with the sand, I'm going to give it a spray with water and wipe it away with some kitchen roll. Now I'm scooping the sand into the bowl. Play sand is a great substrate for dirted tanks. It forms a semi-permeable layer above the dirt, allowing nutrients, healthy bacteria, and so forth to seep up through into the water, benefiting the plants and creatures living above. So it's an important part of the natural filter system we hope to create. I've rinsed the sand to get rid of the dust, which will prevent the water getting cloudy when I add it. But this is why the sand is wet, and wet sand is hard to work with. It doesn't look great, but I can pack it down and reduce the amount of air trapped in there. Then it's just a case of scaping a smooth surface and removing the match. Before adding the decorative sand, I've measured 5 strips of equal width. I'm using strips of paper to separate them as a guide for when the plants go in. The idea is to arrange my plants into rows, like rows of flowers at a Dutch tulip farm. But before the plants go in, I'm going to add my decorative sand. I've got a couple of other setups already using play sand, so I want something that looks a bit different. In this case, my decorative sand has much bigger grains and a bit more color variety, compared to the very fine play sand I've used before. I'll pour it around the perimeter in a band of about 1 inch wide. Hopefully it will provide a bit of visual interest once the water's in the bowl. To prepare for the plants, I'm going to put 4 root tabs into the substrate. I'm going to put them in the 2 outside rows where I'm planning to put carpet plants. Carpet plants are what I have the most trouble with, so I want to give them a boost. This is an optional step. In fact, everything's optional. There's no one set way of doing things in aquascaping. But anyway, hopefully this will feed my smaller plant species. Just quickly before we get into talking about the plants, if you like the passion, the practical advice, the ideas, the inspiration that we bring you here on Aquasplainer, please hit the subscribe button and click like with this video. Thank you. Cryptocoryne parva is one of the smallest kinds of crypts, ideal for one of my outside rows. It's a little bit like an underwater grass, carpet plant that generally stays low. The Tropica pot I bought had a healthy plant inside that I split into 3 by gently pulling it apart. Because the wet sand is sticking together to create a hard, gritty surface, I'm going to drill little holes where I want the crypts to grow. The roots are very short out of the pot, so I'm going to have to cross my fingers and hope the sand will weigh them down a bit. Hopefully they will put in roots, benefit from the root tabs, and won't melt. If so, they should expand to fill the row in our Dutch aquascape. The other Tropica pot I bought was Lilaeopsis brasiliensis. This is another low-growing plant, but it's one I've never tried before. With every aquascape, it's good to experiment and try new things. The specimen in the pot was incredibly healthy and its roots and stems were really packed in. I've split it into 6 pieces, and like the crypt, it was a little tough to plant as the roots had been constrained by the bottom of the pot. A funny thing about this plant is that it smells very much like cucumber. Perhaps the shrimp will like it when they arrive. I'm just pushing it into the sand as best I can. It looks good, although we'll have to see what happens when the water goes in. My strategy was to plant the 2 outside rows first, with the lowest growing plants in them. That way, the taller plants wouldn't get in the way when I needed to get these small ones in around the edges. The next plant is a medium-sized one, and it's meant to contrast with its neighbor in terms of both its leaf shape and color. This is Cryptocoryne wendtii red, and it's meant to grow a rusty red color when it matures. I've cleaned off all the rock wool. Man, I hate that stuff. And I've split the root ball into smaller sections. This time, I'm planting them in a zigzag formation. There's no real reason for it. We'll just see what happens when they fill out. If they do turn red, this plant is going to look stunning. Let's just give it a little spray to make sure it doesn't dry out while we put the other plants into position. I'm just going to rinse the tweezers every once in a while to prevent any grit from damaging the plants. Next up, I'm putting in Echinodorus ozelot green. This is a type of Amazon sword with variegated leaves. Some Amazon swords grow really tall, but this variety is meant to stay medium in size. Perfect for a bowl. Originally, I was going to buy Echinodorus rennie, which has red and green variegation when it's mature. But for some reason, the paler coloration with this ozelot caught my eye. I'm not exactly sure how it will pan out. I wanted good contrast in color between the plants, but maybe this will turn out to be too pale, too similar to the other species. It does have the largest leaves of the 5 plants I'm using, so there is that. I like how it looks, and I hope it grows in nicely. All the plants in this setup came from World of Water in Gloucester, UK. I want to give them a shout out for all the great advice they've given me. Okay, it's time to plant the middle row of plants in my Dutch-inspired aquascape. Limnophila sessiliflora. It's a bit of a tongue twister to say, but this fine-leaved plant is a beast when it comes to absorbing nitrates from the water. So it's great for achieving quick foliage in just about any setup and preventing algae. It's got fine leaves, and if it's well fed with nutrients and light, it shoots up. If you find it grows too tall too quickly, lower the intensity of your light. Longer hours at a lower intensity can help control it. In terms of leaf shape, what we have here is great contrast between the medium-sized leaves of the crypt and the larger leaves of the Amazon sword. I've split the bunch, and I realize some of these stems are already really tall. I might need to cut them. Time to add the water. So let's get rid of our paper guide strips and turn this planted bowl into an aquascape. When it comes to the water, I'm cheating. This bucket contains water from one of my existing planted aquariums, which has already been cycled and is safe for fish, shrimps, and snails. It's balanced and has healthy bacteria in it, which will combine in their effect with the bacteria in the mud below the substrate. In time-honored tradition, I've put the bag that some of the plants came in into the bowl to prevent the current from blasting the sand everywhere and undoing all my hard work. It's taking shape, an underwater environment. So exciting. If you don't have water that is already cycled, I recommend using dechlorinated water treated with a product like Seachem Stabilize. This contains the bacteria you need for a healthy ecosystem. If you're using mud, your bowl will still benefit from this. There's different advice on adding wildlife. Some say you can put it in straight away, others that you should wait a couple of weeks and test until the bowl is ready. My own advice would be to add a few snails after a few days and a couple of shrimps after a week or two. If they remain healthy, add to your stock. I'm going to make sure someone's there to clean up any algae that grows right from the start. My cleanup crew is led by a group of 5 ramshorn snails. I love these guys. If you can describe any type of snail as playful, this is it. They can float, and they use this to navigate the bowl as much as they use their feet. They're like those ancient nautilus creatures. I love the patterns on their shells too, so unique. As I put them in, they're already going to work on the biofilm and any decaying bits on the plants. They eat dead stuff. These ramshorns are going to be vital to turning this planted bowl into a living ecosystem. If you see them floating, don't worry, that's natural. If they're lying on the bottom, that's when you gotta worry. I love them. Okay, so before I bring over the light, I'm just gonna net off some of the plant waste that's floating around on the surface of our bowl. The light is one that I found on Amazon. I'll put the product link in the description for you. It was inexpensive. It's a grow lamp. It uses 80 LEDs, illuminates 15 watts, and it uses a USB socket, so could be ideal if you're short on socket space. The light I bought is called a Garspin. It's a 6000K grow lamp. The bottom button switches it on. The next button is the timer, and it allows you to adjust it to a 6-hour, a 12-hour, or a 16-hour cycle. We're going to run it for 12 hours. Next, you can adjust the color mix. Go for something more green or red, or blue, or white. We're going to go for a middle mix like that. And the top button adjusts the intensity. go in the middle. So we'll go for 12 hours, medium intensity with a soft mix. It's the next day and things are looking pretty good. That was an epic build. Setting up a bowl aquascape is way more intense than I expected, but I have learned a lot. One thing is that the curvature of the bowl makes the substrate at the bottom look concave, so that decorative sand that I put in isn't looking 100%. Also, plants will be plants, and sometimes it's hard to see those organized rows in the Dutch tradition. It's not quite like a tulip field. However, you can see the Cryptocoryne parva on the left, the leopard variegated Amazon sword, then the Limnophila in the middle, and our red crypt, followed by the Lilaeopsis on the right. Finally, we're going to add some neocaridina shrimp in colors that reflect this Dutch flavor: orange, white, and blue, from the old Dutch flag. We'll leave you with some shots of them settling into their new home. Tot ziens, and thank you for watching.